These lore drops are insane, as Bellular says. Let's see what's insane about these lore drops here. There has been a lot of good lore lately. Let's see what this has to do with it.
Catanth. The first time we heard of it was in Legion, but the most recent time, that was a few weeks ago. The time rifts that have been added to WoW are not just an offhand joke, not just a piece of gameplay content and mobs to slay. Well, AZEWRATH might be, but even the wacky...
don't sleep on the Murlocs. They'll fuck you when you least expect it. Hardcore Classic is coming. The Murlocs will be respected.
Robot timeline contains within it a gigantic tease for the lore. So, join me today and let's decode what's really going on. AZEWRATH, the timeline where the Legion won the War of the Ancients. Before we jump through the portal, foul-corrupted Kaldori and Shu-Hello attack, shouting for Lord Illidan and for Queen Azshara. So, we already know in this timeline that Illidan, yes, took Azshara's offer to join forces, and they now seem to rule what remains. Illidan, Lord of Azeroth, is still obsessed with skulls, as he was when we found him atop the Black Temple in the Burning Crusade.
But
instead of Gul'dan's skull, he in fact has his brother's skull. Yeah, Malfurion's dead.
Holy crap, you know I didn't know that? What? He has Malfurion's skull in this timeline? Damn.
Tyrande is still out there leading resistance from Suramar with Little Hope and her troops described as feral. Most notably, though, Sora Dormy says that in this timeline...
Did he say her troops are sterile? Or feral? Okay, yeah.
Sargeras had continued his
sterile
burning
troops
crusade successfully. Too. Now, this outright contradicts the one legion across all of time lore that previously had been put in place by Alex Afrasiabi. We actually did a video on this a few days ago, but the point is that a lot more Legion plotlines are actually now in play.
Yeah, so if you don't know what he's talking about, originally Sargeras, right? So you know how there's like multiple timelines, so there's multiple, everybody, except supposedly the Burning Legion was only one. There was only one version of the Burning Legion across the multiple timelines. This is how the lore was originally laid out. So when we killed Sargeras, supposedly we killed all Sargeras. Like, there was no other one. Well, that's kind of been retconned, and now they're saying, well, actually, that was your timeline, or the WoD timeline Sargeras. And there's still other ones out there in other timelines. Leave it up to Blizzard to retcon some lore. I just wish they'd retcon Shadowlands out of the lore, but that's not going to happen.
Future of the game in our timeline because of this confirmation.
Yeah, Stoic. We can also what you just said in chat is what the original way Blizzard laid it out, but supposedly they're walking that back now because they got to bring back some old baddies. They don't have enough writers these days to write new lore.
The obvious one power dominating is bad. We see the pivotal role of Illidan in the game's story, and how a love triangle between two brothers and Tyrande could literally end the world. But where things get big, though, is...
Leave it up to two simps to end the world. Yes, simps will end the world. I'm convinced at this point that we are near the end times, and the end will be brought about by two types of people. Simps and furries. And actually, I'd add VTubers onto that, but I guess that fits in with simps. But anyways, those three things, those are the, the triangle, the trifecta that's going to end our world. Definitely, yeah.
AZEWRATH, just as big as the art book for our first game, The Pale Beyond. Store.bellular.games if you want to check it out. And you can currently pick up the, right now, 97% recent player rated Pale Beyond on Steam. It's our first game. We're currently working on the second one. Thanks for all of your support. Check those out down below. And now, AZEWRATH. AZEWRATH is the timeline where the Black Empire was never destroyed by the Titans.
They win.
The whole world is covered in fleshy old gods, and it probably looks like the void worlds that we see in the Star Augur Atreus counter. But it's not just a void win that's different in this timeline. This is where it gets mad. We find a stone tablet that details sacrifices that happen in the Black Empire to something known as the Ancient One. It eternally hungers, and if it is not satiated, there will be consequences. Sacrifices, called tributes, are taken from the native races of Azeroth, the Yangol and the Trolls. The writer of the tablet thinks it's the ultimate honor.
It's always the Trolls getting fucked over. Always. The Trolls are always getting screwed.
to be tribute and can't quite understand why the native races of Azeroth don't want to be sacrificed. Now, there are huge things contained within these stone tablets. First, how did the Black Empire win against the Titans? It could revolve around this Ancient One. And remember, Ancient One, singular. And this is where the theories start to branch off. The theory, I suppose, that the Ancient One is the 5th Old God that Blizzard pretty much confirmed as being canon in Dragonflight. This was done via us finding a copy of an old book in Neltharion's personal collection. A book that in the past had been retconned to say 4 old gods, but when we saw it in Dragonflight, it indeed said 5 old gods.
You know, good old WoW lore. If you don't like it, just wait a year. It'll probably get retconned.
And do you want to know where that book also recently appeared? In the restored version of Scholomance that they also added in patch 10.1.7, which I think means that 5 old gods is a concept that is in play. So the question then is, what is this Ancient One? Is it the 5th Old God? Is it something different? What exactly went on during the Black Empire in our timeline? I mean, perhaps in our timeline, was this Ancient One's power recognized by the other old gods as being a problem, so they teamed up against him, dividing his body into many magical artifacts and essences? If you thought that, well, you could actually tie that into another lore theory that's been going on for a very long time, that Xal'atath is indeed the remnants of a 5th old god. And this is not a harebrained theory. This is directly speculation from Blizzard's own artifact knowledge research notes from Legion. That document speculates that Xal'atath may either be
waifu. Look, I hope, I'm going to be honest, already Xal'atath, she's some good old eye candy. But I hope they give her her own new model, because she seems like to be becoming more and more important. And right now, she's just a Void Elf model. Like, there's nothing special to her. Need to add some tentacles or something. Have a good idea for a soft retcon. Just say this timeline is crap, and move to another one. One where there's no Shadowlands. Yeah, I'm sure everybody would be happy with that one. What are you feeling to on your raid? Well, you have to get to 20 for a mythic. This is mythic raid, so we're trying to fill it out to 20.
Claw of Y'Shaarj or a 5th Old God. Mythic now, the Dawn of the Infinite Mega Dungeon, Iridikron wants to reclaim a hungering essence that seemingly was inside Galakrond. And that hungering essence is the thing that made Galakrond do what he did, that made him so very hungry, grow so very large, and actually become a planet and, I suppose, whole Titan plan defying threat.
We'll convert to
now, I think that it's not pure randomness that in this one patch we are seeing 2 things that reference an insatiable hunger. The one point of insatiable hunger that we saw is Galakrond. The other one, of course, that of this Ancient One that needs to be satiated with sacrifices. Now, going back to this timeline. In this timeline, the Ancient One clearly rose to dominance, perhaps subjugated the others, and ended up being so powerful by the time the Titans showed up that there was nothing that they could do. Now, this Ancient...
I don't think that when they talk about this, I don't think it means the Titans couldn't kill him. But at some point, they become so like deep into the planet, like they get so deep into the planet that if you kill them, you will kill Azeroth, essentially.
One seems to be in absolute control and must be fed. That's the theory, but we could go way deeper because there's a little bit more. What if I told you this Ancient One may be called C'Tanth? And this is where Xal'atath is back. In 2 ways. Number one, it's where she's back in this video because this ties into something she said in Legion. And also, she's back as in, we saw her silhouette through the Void Portal whenever Iridikron made his exit.
I missed this.
Now, in Legion, we received a whisper from her when she talked about a grand war between N'Zoth and Y'Shaarj for something or somewhere that was named C'Tanth. Now, the player receives this whisper when they're walking around the broken shore. And really, she wouldn't stop going on about the grand wonders of the Black Empire, how it greatly eclipsed the grandeur of the Temple of Sargeras. So because of that, we assumed that C'Tanth was roughly the place that we were in. But what if C'Tanth was indeed a thing, right? A remnant of that 5th Old God. See, the Ancient One is described as having an eternal hunger, which again perfectly matches what Iridikron was looking for in Dawn of the Infinite, where it is called a hunger.
And Galakron had an eternal hunger, and he was corrupted by the old gods, right? Like, that's why he had his eternal... That's why he was eating everything. Yeah, yes, and all the cosmic forces are trying to shape the world, and, they're just all pulling in their own direction. Bobby Kotick is innocent. Fuck. Yeah, the Old God Whispers have always been some of the coolest lore in the game.
Hunger lost to the ages, an essence of the void that was put into Galakron and recently reclaimed. Yes. And with that hunger, seemingly the Harbinger Xal'atath...
Maybe this fifth Old God is the one who corrupted Galakron, and now he's pulled the essence out of the asshole of Galakron's corpse, and now he's going to use that asshole essence to revive, that anal essence, to revive the Old God who originally corrupted. I didn't think about that. Maybe this is all about finger popping and everything else.
Will be able to pry Azeroth from the Titan's grip.
Bobby's
That's
for boats,
what is said in the cinematic. And if you want more proof, here is the real
Bobby's
killer part of this timeline. A rare NPC named Zalkir the Chosen is found. This NPC drops an item called the Black Blade of Cthulhu. And that is, in fact, the first mention of Cthulhu since the Legion expansion. So is Zalkir actually the chosen of this fifth Old God? Much like how Xal'atath was the blade of the Black Empire, is this the blade of the chosen of Cthulhu? Is it perhaps the same blade? Some people even think that this could be another timeline's version of the blade that Xal'atath would eventually be trapped in. So how about this? I mean, the title of this NPC is Maw of Cthulhu. Maw. That's another reference to hunger, right?
Oh, Maw. Oh my god, that brings back some fucking bad memories. I'd appreciate if they didn't use those words anymore.
Then the thing is that this all goes back to a Naga prophecy foretelling Azshara's return that we found in patch 10.0.7.
Azshara's coming back.
Of a primal power.
Because she's a hentai waifu,
thing, and that seemingly the Void will use against the Titans. It talked about a hunger lost to time. That's what Iridikron recently reclaimed. And the final part of its prophecy talks about a dark heart left broken, waiting to be claimed. So clearly, Void stuff is looming, and it is larger than the 4 terrestrial Old Gods we've known so far. Cthulhu, whether it be a region or a being or indeed the name of this fifth Old God, it seems like it will be relevant very soon.
Yeah.
Now, the chaos doesn't end here.
Yeah, Queen Azshara's definitely got some backstory shit going on. She had her own motives the entire time. We still don't really know what they were. She's probably seeking power. That's always been her endgame goal, is to seek power and hentai. That's her other goal. But I definitely think she's all of her motivations were selfish. She's always been a selfish bitch. So that continues on.
It in fact continues in the timeline of order. I know that might seem confusing. This is the timeline where the Titans not only beat the Old Gods, but also found a way to kill them and remove them from Azeroth. You'd think then
I think in this timeline there was no Curse of Flesh, too.
A perfectly ordered utopia, but what we find is in fact the opposite. In this timeline, the forests are full of vicious creatures that have taken over the world. A Titan disc returned to Sorodormi fills us in. Addressed to a newly minted Watcher, Azeroth is described as a verdant planet seeded with forests by the Titans. But it gets weird. There is no order, there is no control. It did not follow the Titans' path. A projector was also found with a scientific report on the native life, and it speaks of the Yangol being one of the few sentient races to have survived these forests, and that they did it by hiding underground. Damn. There are very few adults of this species, and the average Yangol lifespan is only 20 years. But that is, in fact, longer than the lifespan of the Watchers that the Titans are creating. Literally because those Watchers are placed into a forest that is so dangerous that they get destroyed. So, a Keeper decides to do something about it, to catch and release the Yangol so they can learn from them and engineer the Watchers better. And in doing this, the Watchers actually get smaller and better at hiding. They don't get larger and stronger. The best they can do against these powers of life ran amok is to get smaller and hide. But the grim bit is, the life of the world adapts and kills the Watchers anyway. So this is a timeline ostensibly dominated by the Titans, but that is in fact completely overgrown by life. The Titans won,
so they won,
only
but then they
to
fucked up
end up like
timeline?
A paved street mangled by root and weed. Now, in the Dreadlord intelligence report that we see in Shadowlands, life is very much described as being insidious. And here we see
these guys,
exactly
the
that. And indeed, if you look at the background lore of the world of Draenor, where the orcs in Warcraft come from, almost all of this is played out there. It's actually one of the most significant yet less known bits of backstory. It's this brilliant big war between the Genosaurs and the Breakers. So basically the big rock giants and all of that like crazy overgrown kaiju looking stuff that we saw on, in Warlords of Draenor. Now, the Breakers eventually end up evolving into the Giants, and then, of course, the orcs that we know today. Now, the thing here is, if you look at A.Z.E.R.O.T.H, the Titan of Life, her title is Life Binder, right? Binder. She doesn't want a healthy wild area.
That's true.
She wants a perfectly controlled garden.
She wants to control it, just like she's controlling that cheek right there. Yeah, she wants, that's right, she's not just a creator of life, because life is kind of uncontrollable, especially if it develops free will. So she's the binder of life. She likes to have it, but have it under complete control. Yeah, booty, yeah.
Yet, in this timeline, wildlife won. Is that relevant to us? I would say absolutely. Number one, it makes us think, what the hell's going on with Elunaria? That's the world that we actually visited to rescue A.Z.E.R.O.T.H in the Antorus raid back in Legion. And that area is actually used for this timeline in Dragonflight. Number two, then, as seen with the near infestation of Stormwind at the end of the Everbloom dungeon, life is truly dangerous. What then of the Botani, who are that same group that endangered Stormwind at the end of that dungeon? What happened to the Botani that escaped Draenor at the very start of the Battle for Azeroth expansion? They ran away, and we have not seen them since. That could be a future plotline in Kalimdor.
Yeah.
But okay. Let's move from life over to death.
The best of all the
timeline where the Scourge win.
Yes.
Arthas is Lord of the World, and he does exactly what he intended to do per Chronicle, essentially just raising all life into undeath so the planet is united, able to fend off whatever may happen.
What's up,
Perhaps
Connie?
that notion of him still feeling like he's king, right? Unite the world to protect it from whatever comes. Back in the day, we thought that whatever may...
This was the case where the one king, no king rules forever, my son, was not true, because he rules forever in this timeline. And I'm raised as a Death Knight still in this timeline, but, you know, I serve the one true king.
Come was the Legion, because the Lich King obviously knew about the Legion stuff.
Yeah, he did know about the Legion, that is confirmed.
As the lore stands with Shadowlands, Azeroth was to be united...
Can I skip this part of the video? Can I skip this part of the video? Is this necessary? Do we gotta watch this?
In undeath, so I suppose it could be defended
PTSD,
until the jailer eventually could turn up to slurp our world soul.
Yeah.
That's literally what the Forge of Souls is for in the modern lore. Boo! We don't like that. But there is a big question on how the jailer would be able to do anything without us champions. After all, the jailer's plan needed us.
The Sky Dildo. I almost forgot about this. The worst hub city in the history of the game. For the entirety of the expansion. Mind you, this was COVID lockdown. I played this game a ton. I could not find out where the fuck I was in this city, ever. I had to run around in a circle every time because I was so disoriented by the fact that everything looked the same in fucking Oribos, I could never figure out where I was. I had to, like, run in circles to find the vault every time. Man, this expansion sucked.
To go and kill Argus, so that Argus could somehow blue screen of death the Arbiter, thus leading to the Anima Drought. We could talk in circles for years in this stupid Shadowlands lore, but the point is here that the Scourge won, and now we've got an amazing looking tabard. Another thing of note, though, is the Ashbringer, because it is specifically pointed out as being way more powerful than the Ashbringer that was in our timeline. It's just so juiced up with necromantic magic, to the point where Sora Dormi does not want anything to do with it, and says it's better left to the Ebon Blade. And I think this goes to the idea of one force being dominant in each of these different timelines. In this one, of course, it's the force of death, as we see in this Ashbringer, that is so much more powerful. But we've seen in all of these other timelines that, yes, if one force dominates all the others, then basically it's quite bad news for Azeroth. Azarath sucks. Az-Karoth is constant sacrifice to an ancient one. Uldaroth is completely overran with wildlife. Mortals basically get chewed up by the forest instantly. Titans can't get anything done. And now we have Asmorn, a literal dead world.
How many again?
I think it all goes back to this cosmic balance they've been trying to push. Some things, of course, are just a bit more fun. Like the Warlands, which is essentially just Mad Max in WoW.
Yeah. This is just that Horde and Alliance going
Then we move to the Warlands, and I'm going to gloss over it because the big...
So in this timeline, Blizzard never fell off. Bobby never bought Blizzard. And the player population remained so high that Blizzard continued to have faction wars in the expansions because we still had so many Horde and Alliance playing the game that they could do so. This is the no Bobby Kotick. Bobby gets no boast timeline. Hence the reason why you fight on a boat.
Emotional damage.
Yep.
Lore implications just aren't really there. Your TLDR is that in this timeline, Arthas is stopped at Dalaran. Now, the way that the lore goes is that Arthas ends up going to Dalaran, getting a whole bunch of power, and using that to summon in Archimonde, leading to essentially most of Warcraft 3 happening. That doesn't happen in this timeline. Both sides basically fall to war. A little civil war within the Alliance leads to all the Warhawks coming out on top. They basically buy a weapon Kalimdor, leading to just total war chaos with really no hope. And Varian...
This is the part putting the war back in Warcraft. Yeah, badass.
That is a bit augmented without an eye and looks old and grizzled. In terms of the big lore implications...
He kind of looks... I'm not going to lie. I didn't really like this version of Varian that much. It's kind of cool, but he looks Amish. I don't know why they picked this facial hair to go with. He looks like an Amish Varian.
Old and grizzled.
Should have
went with a full beard. In terms of the big lore implications, though, there just isn't as much, so let's hop on. You probably didn't think that there'd be major lore in what would look like the joke gnome timeline. A.Z.E.R.O.T.H, right? Spelled out as an acronym. You see, this is the timeline where King Mechagon actually won and tried to turn Azeroth into a gear world. Chromie actually warned us of this timeline all the way back in Battle for Azeroth, saying it was really bad news. This time around, though, Mechagon successfully activated the Mech Originator, which was designed to reverse the Curse of Flesh. You know, turn the humans back into, I guess,
stone.
Small Vrykul, the dwarves into earth and all of that, but it did not work out as planned. Instead, it ignited a global firestorm that destroyed all organic life. So now it's a lonely timeline with a few mechanical creatures running around Azeroth. Which then begs the question, why do they need so many guns? And per the lore book that we discover, even if we're all gone or turned into cogs, something is still coming to Azeroth. Something is coming for the world. And the Mechanomes know they need to defend her, which is why they develop all of those crazy weapons. And that's the thing.
Weapons
in
of
each
mass
totally
destruction.
dominated timeline, we do see that it's not utopian. It's not even each side's view of a utopia, seemingly. It all looks like they're gearing up for something. And really, as much as we may have laughed at Zoval's "what is to come" line, because he was such a lame character, it is clear that there's more out there. Perhaps that's what...
It just triggers me. Every time I see him, it triggers me.
The Void wants us to subvert. Maybe that is what finally drove Nosdormu to turn. I mean, do you remember Morzon's final lines in the End Time Dungeon? Aman'Thul, what I have seen. And I have a feeling whatever he has seen is actually what the Mechanomes in that timeline are building all their guns for. So, what do you think then? I think that seeing alternate timelines is really fun. We can contrast them to our timeline, work out the differences, and then creatively figure out what Blizzard actually means by that. So at the very least, interesting Legion things, in that we now know it's not one Legion across all time, and that's really good for storytelling potential. It means characters like Archimonde are actually still, people who could feature in the game in the future, which is kind of cool. We know of this ancient one, a fifth old god, and Cthulhu. And to be honest, if some big Cthulhu stuff happens, yeah, that, I don't know, it sounds pretty cool, so I'd be down for that. Anyway, that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed today's little dive through time. Of course, you can check out The Pale Beyond. It's currently 25% off on Steam. Thanks, Gabe. And if you want to grab our art book or other goodies, store.valuelure.games. With that, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know your own theories, and I will see you next time.
Pretty good video. Yeah, I think he's right about a lot of this. I definitely see the Emerald Dream stuff playing out in the next patch. We're gonna find out a lot about that and what it has to do maybe with the fifth old cock, or old god as they call it.